Hello, everyone. This week we're going to do things a little bit differently than we've been doing so far. I'm going to have my colleague Micah Morgan do the first two videos in this week's lessons while I'm working on other content. Her stuff is perfect. It's great. No problems there at all. Um, so, you know, thank you, Micah, for assisting here. The first video is the one labeled Intro to Python Video Tutorial in D2L. The second video is Python Basics Video Tutorial. So in there, she's going to begin to show you how to code in Python. She's going to use what we call an IDE. It's Integrated Development Environment. And this is a program that is built specifically for you to develop other programs in, and it supports that. So, let me give you a quick example. When I started coding, oftentimes when you're trying to troubleshoot a program that isn't running the way you intended it to, you obviously got to figure out, okay, what did I do wrong? The computer isn't wrong. I gave a wrong instruction somewhere. I did something wrong. And there's two types of errors you run into. One of them is called syntax, and that is you violated the rules of the language in some form or fashion. And syntax tends to be very obvious, but generally what happens is the interpreter or the compiler will kick out an error message, like the stuff that we saw in some, well, I don't know if you've seen it yet, but it will kick out an error message that will maybe help you figure out what your problem is. Maybe, kind of, sort of. Not always. Um, that's a syntactic error. There are also errors called logic errors. Logic errors are essentially you did something wrong in in the order and the types of commands that you issued, such that the machine behaves in a way that you don't expect. One of the most egregious and problematic are things where you actually end up in a situation where the program can never terminate. We call these things infinite loops. And that's a form of logic error. And what that indicates is that you have not placed a condition in there that would cause the loop to terminate. And so consequently, it just keeps running. And sometimes the only thing you can do is terminate if you're familiar enough with the operating system to terminate the task or the program directly without shutting the whole machine down, well, that's great. But in some cases, certainly in the older days, sometimes you had no choice but to shut the machine down and reboot it, and restart it. Needless to say, you don't want to do that. So, uh, you know, it, so in older days, though, it was a real challenge to try to troubleshoot those problems because, of course, while it's running, you don't see the code executing. You don't know where it's at. So where did the problem happen? Logic error. Again, you're not even getting that somewhat helpful information from either the operating system or the language itself that might give you a clue as to what's going on. So, what we would do is we would put breaks in the program. We would say, okay, I know it's got to be executing up to here because I got a prompt here and it took the information in there. But beyond that, I don't know what happened. And you would put a break, a little ways down from that in your program, and then execute again. And if it managed to get to that break, then you knew the problem wasn't before that break. So you could kind of move that break down through the program until all of a sudden, when you ran it, you ran into your problem again, whatever that problem happened to be. Okay. Oftentimes, though, also it'd be helpful, particularly in loops and things like that, where you're going to be doing something over and over and over again, is to kind of see, okay, well, maybe what's happening is the math is wrong, and somehow I'm never getting to a condition that's going to terminate or whatever, or just sometimes you need to know what's actually really happening in the computer. And in those days, our only options were we would put print statements in there. And anyway, there was a lot to be. It was difficult and time consuming. Integrated development environments, amongst many things that they do, offer ways for you to actually take a look and see and to control the operation of the program without having to resort to writing new code, to putting new code in your program to do that. So that's what an IDE is. So Micah is going to demonstrate an IDE that's available on the web called Replit. Now, first thing you need to understand is that her videos were produced in 2023. Replit recently changed their model from being completely free to only being free for the first 10 hours it's used in a month. That could sound like a lot, but honestly, sometimes when you get into a problem, if you have a problem with your program, it can take a lot of time to resolve. And so 10 hours is something that I could see where some of you are likely to exhaust that pretty easily. Not to mention the fact that this is from time is counted from the time you log in to the time you log out. And if you walk away and go get a soda or a cup of coffee or whatever, it's still counting those minutes. And if the way I discovered this was I inadvertently left it open when I was finished for the night. And since I work at home, I don't necessarily shut my machine down. And when I came back the next day, it said, hey, you're out of minutes. See you next month. Okay. Now, so again, Micah's videos were produced in 2023, and the situation was different then. And, but all of the content that she's given you, the things that she talks about in there, is still valid, still works within Python and everything else. So the question is, so what are your options as far as you go forward and start doing these programs and experiment and everything else? Well, honestly, I'm researching what those options are at Midwestern. One of the things is, well, while I have many, many more years experience in computers than Micah does, she has more time at Midwestern, so she's, as far as an instructor is concerned, so she's much more familiar with what options are available. So I've reached out to her and some other instructors and say, okay, what's our recommendation as an alternative to Replit? I took a look for a few things, and I didn't see an awful lot that was really as complete as Replit. So now your option could be that you elect to upgrade to Core, which will cost $25 a month to month, which, unless you're planning on doing a lot of Python coding, I'd say, go for a month. And because we're going to be done with Python in a month. So you won't need it after that month unless it's something you really want to do beyond that, in which case it's 25 a month, but only 1 month, that's 25 bucks. But if the other option is to go annually, which is 180 bucks, which is $15 a month, which is a big saving if you're going to use it. So there's an alternative. There are other, but you're not restricted to Replit. You can use any integrated development environment you wish, and there are many available, and many of them are free. The bad news is that most of them have to run on a laptop or a home computer or something like that. It's not something there's not delivered online like Replit is. I did find one thing, but as I was starting to look at it, the first thing it said is, oh, we're a beta product. Well, I don't want you guys to be spending a lot of time working on a product that's in beta. Beta simply means that it's still not completely baked and it hasn't been released to production, as we talk about. In other words, it's available for people to play with, but they don't guarantee that it's going to work. I don't want you to waste your time on that, so I didn't go into that. I believe, I suspect, highly suspect that the lab computers probably have Python on it, in which case you could go to the lab and do your work there. Or, if you wish, I'll be giving suggestions later as I get some confirmation on things. I'll be clarifying this in a news flash on D2L. I'll give you some clarification on what your options are, but just to kind of give you a heads up that and to let you know that I'm aware of the fact she's going to be talking about something in a manner. She's going to be talking about Replit as if it's completely free, and I need you to know right away it's not, and that we're looking into alternatives on that, and I should have some answers for you right quick. I'm sure probably tomorrow or Tuesday. Anyway, regardless, again, let me reemphasize: what Micah shows you in there is going to work no matter what IDE you use, and so there's nothing that those videos are completely valid and useful for you. So pay close attention. And she's going to talk about some things in there, and she's going to say that it's important. You really want to understand those things, and I'm going to reemphasize those things as well when they come up in the sections that I'm going to show you. So enough about that. So I'm going to return in the third video this week, and what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to continue our lessons on algorithm development. As I promised last week, I'm going to continue to develop that algorithm around averaging numbers. And what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to demonstrate how that algorithm can be mapped directly to your Python program. And so so that you'll get an idea why algorithms have a lot of utility. So anyway, without further ado, here's Micah.